What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Wayne's World. So this is episode number 12, and today's date is September 21st, 2021. So some updates on some upcoming classes. October 3rd and October 23rd, we have concealed pistol licensing courses coming up at the Central Michigan Sportsman's Club, which is just outside of Stanton. We have another concealed pistol licensing course coming up on October 10th at the Newark Township Hall, which is just southwest of Ithaca. Come to those classes, send your friends to those classes. We go over a lot of very important information in those classes, things that are going to help you and your family be safe in life. It isn't just a formality the way that I run these courses. There's something for everybody in those classes. So come check us out. And then on October 16th, we have a pistol skills class, or in other words, an advanced pistol class coming up at the Flat River Recreation Club or Conservation Club. I can't remember if it's recreation or conservation, but Flat River. And all that information's on our website, on our upcoming courses page. If you got any questions, feel free to email me, text message me, call me, whatever, and I'll answer your questions. But come do some training. And like I tell all of my students, getting prepared to protect yourself and your family is it's a lifelong process. It's something that you have to learn to practice every day. And I put a lot of experience and a lot of effort into these classes. And I get phone calls every once in a while where people ask me, what's the difference between your class and some of the other classes in your area? I'm sure there's some other good classes in our area, one or two in particular that I know of. But there's also some other places in our area where I know that the so-called instructor, and I use that term very, very loosely, watched a few YouTube videos, played a few video games, and anybody can get licensed to be a firearms instructor. Your 87-year-old grandma who has never touched a firearm could be a firearms instructor next week if she wants to be. And it's just about paying a little bit of money and spending a little bit of time in a class where they don't care if you have experience or a background or whatever. And the problem is, and why people will come out and recommend all kinds of different courses to people, and I'm sorry I'm going on a rant here, but I got to tell you the truth, is that most people that come to these types of classes are blank slates when it comes to either personal protection firearms in general or firearms altogether. So they're blank slates. So they don't know what right looks like. And the CPL class in general is a one and done class. So if you've never taken another class pertaining to that information and that type of training, how do you know what correct is? You know, you go and take that class because you expect an experienced, highly trained person to be standing in front of you giving you information, but that's not necessarily the case these days. That's why if you get on YouTube and you look up firearms instructor shooting themselves or shooting student or whatever, you'll find all kinds of videos where so-called instructors have an accident with a firearm. And just be wary. You know, a lot of times you can look at a person and tell if they're experienced or not. And if you call them up and say, hey, what's your background? What's your experience? And they tell you, I've trained with so-and-so, or I've done such and such, and it sounds like a load of bullshit, it probably is a load of bullshit. Or if they make up a rank for themselves and it has nothing to do with military or law enforcement, it's probably bullshit. So be mindful of that. And the reason that I say this is because the consequences of doing something incorrectly with a firearm can be detrimental in a multitude of very important ways. It could end up in someone getting hurt or killed, or it could end up in you being put in jail or prison. So be careful and look into someone's experience and background before you decide to go and take a class with them. Because I promise you, there are some very unqualified people out there running so-called firearms courses, and you can kind of judge a book by a cover with some of these so-called people. So on another note, so there's our upcoming courses, a little bit of rant on my behalf, and then, you know, we talked about Afghanistan quite extensively in the last few videos that we put out there, and we've talked about a few other things, and right now you should be preparing yourself for possible chaos to ensue in our country. And I'm not trying to spread fear or make you paranoid or make you think that I'm paranoid, because I'm absolutely not. But big things are coming. I can feel it in my bones that big things are coming. And we've been led to believe in this country that the world is a happy, safe, comfortable place where your feelings matter and everybody is important. But that's just plain not true. If you've been outside this country, especially to third world countries, you understand real quickly that the world is not a happy, safe, comfortable place, and that your feelings really don't matter all that much. And most of us are probably, in the big scheme of things, insignificant. And that's not what you've been taught your whole life. You've been taught that you're important, you matter, and your feelings matter. And I mean, to some extent, we all do. But we've also been led to believe that America will always stand and will always be what it has been for the last 50, 60 years. And what's going on in our political realm right now, you know, it's not a big deal, because if you just bide your time, in 4 years, somebody else will get elected. 4 years after that, somebody else will get elected. But I think in the current era that we live in, that's just plain not true. And I think there's very powerful people out there, and some of which we probably don't even know their names or who they are, that want to see America crumble and want to see our way of life gone. Because I think that we are that little tiny piece of glue that holds the world somewhat together and somewhat in check. And if we disappear and that glue disappears, the world becomes a very bad place for all of us. And there's people that want that to happen. Mark my words, there's a lot of powerful people out there that want that to happen. And we can't let it. We have to fight against it. And there's also some powerful people out there on our side who are fighting against it. And this Friday, the Arizona audit report is supposed to drop and come out. And I don't think that it is. I think that we're putting that information out there to make the bad side, the other side, expend some ammunition. And if you've kind of watched some backstream or back channel information recently, there was a report put out there about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. It was recently though, where they said sometime around this week that a solar flare is supposed to hit the earth that may knock out all internet communication in North America. So you mean to tell me, it was put out there by Forbes, who we know is very left-leaning. So you mean to tell me we can't predict the weather 5 minutes ahead of time accurately, but you can predict when something's going to leave the sun, which is millions of miles away, get to the earth, and that thing that's leaving the sun is going to knock out all internet communication, specifically in North America. Now, my thought process tells me that was them putting information out there that if they do knock out the internet, they can use it as an excuse. And now, why would they want to knock out the internet? Well, if the information from the Arizona audit comes out, you're never going to hear about what really happened on MSNBC, on CNN, probably not even on Fox. And if they knock out all of the backstream information, all of the stuff that you hear on BitChute and YouTube and these other sources, then where do you get your news from? Where do you get your information from? How do you communicate with other people? You don't, so all you're stuck with is those mainstream news channels. And if the internet goes down, we're in a world of hurt, because we rely on the internet for everything in the world that we live in nowadays. I don't think that was a smart thing for us to do, but there's not very much that any of us do in our normal given daily life that somehow doesn't revolve around the internet. I mean, even as much to the products that you buy at the store, I'm sure that their tracking information, their ordering information, their money information all revolves around the internet. Your banking information all revolves around the internet. Everything revolves around the internet these days. So if the internet is gone, what do we do? And I think that's one of the things that they may be planning, and it was preemptively put out there that it may be caused by a solar flare so that they have an excuse for it. So be very, very prepared for things to get a little bit hectic throughout the United States here soon. And I think that they're going to start pushing the riots again. And I've been saying this for a little while, but I think they've been kind of holding back and waiting for the audits to start coming out before they start pushing the riots again. And I think that's why they're pushing these mask mandates again, is so that when they do start pushing the riots, people feel more empowered and emboldened to go out there and cause destruction and burn cop cars and burn down businesses and attack people because their identity's obscured. So we need to be prepared. And if your eyes aren't open yet to what's going on in the world that we live in these days, I don't know what to tell you, because all it takes is you seeing through the fog on one thing, see through the narrative on one thing, and then everything starts to unravel behind it. And where my eyes really got opened at was 9/11. And I don't know what happened that day. I was in the Marine Corps when it happened. I was just newly into the Marine Corps. And I came back to my buddy's room one day, right after the first plane hit. We watched the second plane hit, and then we were doing mount training, military operations in urban terrain. So we were training to fight in the city that week. And for the first day or two, we sat in the bleachers and listened to the radio because we were all jacked up, like, hell yeah, we're going to war. That's what we all thought. And it took a little while, but eventually we did. But I don't think that the narrative they put out there from that day is the truth of what really happened. Do I think it was an inside job? I think there was some inside people very involved in it. And I think that some people got very, very rich off of what happened with 9/11. And I think it changed the world and the way we live when 9/11 happened. I mean, look how much stuff has changed since then. You after that, you were willing to give up some of your freedom for security. And that's something that we can't ever do. And they're trying to do it again. They're trying to make you give up some of your freedom for security. And what do I mean by that? So this pandemic, they're trying to make it to where you lose your freedom if you don't go out there and get the jab. That's not right. Whether and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I don't know enough about this stuff to be an anti or a pro-vaccine person, but I'm definitely pro-freedom. And my constitutional rights, my God-given rights, the government did not grant me these rights. I was afforded them at birth by my God, by my creator, whoever you think that is. That's who afforded you these rights, not your government. So your government can't take them away from you. And the government's job is to protect those constitutional rights. And if you don't want to get a needle shoved in your arm and some foreign substance put into your body, then by all means, that's your right. And, we have created a society of weak sheep-like people that fall for whatever narrative they're told to fall for. And everybody is very hypocritical, and the hypocrisy is just crazy. A year ago, people were out there screaming and chanting and putting up a fuss, my body, my choice, over abortions. But those same exact people that were screaming the loudest, my body, my choice, are the same people that are screaming the loudest right now saying you better get vaccinated or else. How does any of that make sense to you? So look through the fog, look through the narrative, and find one line. Everything else will unravel. I promise you. If you think that we are way too sophisticated of a society for our elections to be rigged, you're wrong. And I think that's one of the reasons why the good guys have let us be dragged through the mud a little bit, because they want to open people's eyes. And look at everything that's going on in our country since January. I mean, the pandemic alone is a terrible situation for the world and the United States to be in. I think that was caused or put out there on purpose to change the course of the election and make it to where mail-in voting was a normal thing. And we've known forever that the easiest way to fraud a vote is through mail. And everybody on both sides of the aisle have said this for years. But now all of a sudden it's okay. So that changed the course of the election. Well, then a lot of bad things happened during the election, and all of the glitches in the system just so happened to fall one way. And you know what way I mean by that. Well, then January happens, we get a new administration. All of a sudden, hey, our borders are wide open, and we have hundreds of thousands and millions of people rushing our borders all year long, getting into our country, and we're supposed to just let them in here, give them health care, give them housing, give them money, and take care of them. And they're not the intelligent, smart people out there in this world that can help us be better as a nation. We're getting the uneducated, unskilled, sick, weak, poor people coming here looking for us to take care of them. And it's not okay. And I feel bad for people throughout the world that live in terrible conditions and live in dangerous societies. But our ancestors fought and died to make this country the way it is. And you are freely giving it away if you want these people who are trying to come here illegally, if you want them to be here. There's a legal process to go through to get into our country. Just like there's a legal process to go through to get into any other country on planet Earth. So it's wrong. And so we're flooding the border. We're letting these people in here. And at the same time, now we're flying, a couple 100,000 unvetted Afghan refugees into our country and dispersing them into swing states. Unvetted. It wasn't the people that helped us throughout the last 20 years of war that were flying here. It's just random people. And if you get into and start digging into that information, the Marines that were protecting that airport where everybody was flying out of, they were told, let whoever through, we're just trying to hit a quota. Doesn't matter who the person is, let them through, we're trying to hit a quota. And you can guarantee that a good part of those people were ISIS, the Taliban, and other terrorist organizations. And because the Taliban was running outer security on that airport, so nobody was getting through their perimeter to our perimeter without going through the Taliban first. And you think they were letting the poor, weak people that were against them through? Oh, hell no. They were letting their people through. They were saying, hey, get into the States. Once you get there and you get comfortable, start bringing your family over. And then we start having kids. And then you start getting more powerful in your communities. And then you start getting more powerful in your states. And then we start getting more powerful within the country. The whole idea of the Islamic takeover of other areas has always been infiltration from within and get into their system, overpopulate their system, and then we take over because we outnumber them. So there's a lot of bad stuff going on in our country right now, and they're trying to strip you of your rights. We give the Taliban $86 billion in American equipment, and don't listen to them saying that most of it's inoperable, because it's operable. We're watching them use it. We're watching them hang people by their necks and fly around in our helicopters with the person hanging from the helicopter. And we're watching them shoot our firearms. We're watching them wear our equipment. We're watching them, use that stuff to kill, torture, and hurt innocent people. And it's everything that's going on right now in our country is wrong. And if you're siding with the other team still, you are wrong. If you still hate our former president because of some mean tweets and because he treated these treasonous people like shit, you need to grow some thicker skin. That person, Donald Trump, acted like a non-political person. He acted like a regular human being who got frustrated and who spoke his mind and who spoke the truth. And I'm not one of those people out there that thinks Trump is Jesus. I just think that guy actually gives a shit about America and the American people. And everything that he did was looking out for us. And it pissed all of our politicians off. It pissed all of the wealthy off. It pissed the media off. All of these people that are against us or against you and me, the normal, hardworking, everyday person out here, barely hanging on and trying to provide a safe, happy, comfortable life for our families. And I think we had it pretty good there for a little while underneath Trump, and up until the pandemic hit. And, the writing's on the wall that there's people that are attacking this country, and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. It's just they've kicked it into high gear now. They had a plan. Their plan was 8 years of Osama and 8 years of Hillary, and we'll have completed our mission. We'll have virtually destroyed America. And Trump was a monkey wrench in their gears. And so now they've kicked it into high gear. You can't honestly look at Joe Biden and think that guy's an intelligent president. You can't honestly look at that guy and think that he got more votes than any president in American history. You can't. And if you still do, then you're lost. They say that there's 7% of people, roughly, that will never wake up to what's going on. And you need to wake up. You need to get prepared, because you may be on their side, but they're still not looking out for your best interests. So, a lot of things going on. And I got so much that I want to put out there. I've been researching this stuff for 20 plus years. And, almost 20 years. Since just after 9/11. So, yeah, around 20 years. And I've seen so much stuff happen that shows me that there's people in control that want to destroy us. And how do we fight back? Just like I said in my last video, we have to start at the bottom. That's why I ran for sheriff. And what can you do? Figure out what your kids are learning in school. Get into your school boards. Make sure your kids are learning the right things and they're not being brainwashed in grade school and in high school. And for instance, my 12-year-old niece, who's at my house quite often, I'm always asking them, how's school going? What are you doing in school? What are you learning these days in school? And my one niece tells me that every morning they watch CNN, so very left-leaning news, and then she goes into a class that's called Understanding Diversity, where they have to watch videos with transvestites and homosexuals, where boys are making out with boys and girls are making out with girls, and they're taught that this is okay and normal and right. Yeah, you can be whoever you want to be. That's part of being free. But we shouldn't be forcing this stuff on other people. We shouldn't be forcing it on our kids, because it's not normal. It's not. It's plain not normal. And I'm not being prejudiced by saying that. But what the definition of normal is when 62% of the population believes or does or is a certain way. So it takes 62% to be normal. And there's less than 2% of the population of the United States that's anything but heterosexual. So how is homosexuality normal if it's only less than 2% of the population? But they're trying to make our kids think that it's normal and it's cool, and that you'll be a protected class because now you're a victim. And we're teaching our kids that victimhood is good, and fighting back is wrong, and standing up for what you believe in is wrong. And we're teaching them that the American way of life is racist, and you're evil if you think that America is a great place. And we've just recently caught a teacher trying to force their kids to pledge allegiance to the gay pride flag. We caught another teacher saying that he has 180 days to turn his kids that he's teaching into the Antifa way of thinking. This is the stuff that's being forced on our kids in schools. And it's not just the big city schools. The school my niece goes to, we're in a tiny podunk, nowhere cornfield type county. There's 42,000 people in our county. She goes to the biggest school in the county, but it's still not a big school. So we got to stand up. We got to fight back. We got to start taking over at the lower level. We got to start making our voice be heard at the lower level. Get into the school boards and figure out what your kids are learning. Get into your village or city or town politics and figure out what's going on. Start getting a foothold in the lower political realm, and then we can start making a difference. I have a very good friend of mine right now who's about to, I think, run for Senate in his state. And, he's trying to make as big a difference as he can. And I applaud him for it, because he's going to be attacked. He's going to be attacked, and he's going to have a hard road ahead of him because he's not a politician. And he's a military guy. He's a career military. And, the bottom line of this video is you got to start fighting back. You got to open your eyes. You got to see through the narrative, and you got to get yourself and your family prepared for what possibly could be on the horizon. And what's possibly on the horizon is a scary, dangerous place, because if things start to crumble, desperate people do desperate things. And I promise you, not every person out there is as good of a person as you are. And there's people out there that will hurt you and hurt your family to make themselves more comfortable. And I think that if things do start to collapse, and if they collapse on a major scale, the first thing that's going to happen is the cities are going to eat themselves. Like, the bigger cities are going to crumble upon themselves, and then the people that are still left in those cities are going to start pushing outwards. And it's going to be tough everywhere, and it's going to be hard to get resources that you need, medical resources and food and water and those things that we're pretty lackadaisical about. Like we think, oh, if I need food, I'll just go to the grocery store. I'll just stop at this fast food restaurant. If I need gas, I'll just go to the gas station. Well, what if all that stuff disappears? You know, look what happened when toilet paper disappeared. People freaked out and lost their minds over it. And that was over toilet paper. That's one of the least important things that I can think of that I need. I can think of a million other ways to do what toilet paper does. You know, it's kind of gross to think about it, but it's one of the least important necessities on my list. But anyways, guys, we got to start getting prepared. My next few videos, I know I kind of rambled in this one like I have been lately. I'm just trying to get something out there because it's been 2 weeks since my last video. But I'm going to bring you guys some good training and some good home security tips here soon. And until next time, have a great day.